The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Edition of the Hail Varsity Audio Something. I'm Mark Kraynak. That is Elijah Irving for Chris. The great text, and it was a great question, a rhetorical one from you, Elijah, where you're like, Chris just sent it to. Oh, there it is. Okay, so Chris, we were just wondering. We just started. Don't worry, dude. You've only missed like 9 seconds of the show. We were just like, let's just go. And Elijah asked the rhetorical question. He's like, well, we got the text from Chris, and it said rebooting. Do you think that means like him getting up, like yourself is rebooting, or the computer? We didn't really know, but looking at you, it looks like you've been up for a little bit.
I've been up for a while, pacing around.
Okay.
My audience of one was up here, Gertrude, the German Shepherd, and she had to pop in and out. But no, I'm good. I did have to reboot the computer. Usually this thing's pretty tamper-proof, but we had to do a little maintenance this morning. So how you guys doing?
Yeah.
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, fair to middling.
I'd be doing a lot better if the Nuggets got it done last night, because now I look like an idiot after telling Jacob Bill the Nuggets are going to sweep his Suns. Now I'm looking like an idiot because I'll blame the refs. They weren't calling it fair both ways. That's all it comes down to. It wasn't because Jamal Murray was missing everything you put up in the fourth quarter. That couldn't be it. I'm going to blame the ref show. So Nuggets 2-1 with the Suns. Not great, but it's the weekend, so...
Yeah, I was
an
looking
umpire,
at the box
man.
score
How are you
there.
going to go against your brethren?
NBA refs and baseball umpires, two different breeds, cut from different cloths. They're their own thing. I stick with the umpires, except Angel Hernandez.
Okay. Except good morning to everybody. Except man, we started to hit that time, fellas. So like, have you noticed we've hit that time where it's going to slow down considerably on the football front? Right, transfer portal closed, spring ball over. Matt Rhule maybe, getting a little sleep. Like they do get to relax a little, even though they got to prepare for the summer circuit coming up. All the camps and a lot of official visits and all that stuff opens up in due time. But that part's slowing down a little bit. There's not much to speak of in basketball. There's not much going on in volleyball, obviously. Baseball.
Is really tough to talk about.
It will see. Yeah, like I still do not know what to make of those guys, and it's bizarre too, because when you just look at them individually, I mean, you have 2 straight up generational players on your team right now, hitting wise. Like, I mean, just go back all the way to the Bolt era with like when Bolt was playing is what I'm talking about. Like Matt Hopper and Dan Johnson, like Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson are at that level. There's 2 of them, and you're middling in the Big Ten. You're losing to North Dakota State at home on a Wednesday. You got one of your senior studs, Kyle Perry, who, again, individually, you watch him. He's got the motion you want. He's got the size you want. He's got, he's hitting 90 on the gun.
Yeah, especially after he's hitting enough velocity for what you want from a guy who's coming off of Tommy John surgery. Like, giving you enough.
He had no movement on his pitch, though, and sometimes that just happens. He has no movement on Wednesday night, and North Dakota State just teed off on him. But it is they're an enigma, man. They are tough to figure out, and you can see or hear Will Bolt's frustration about it, where he says, "Hey, we got to play together as a team." Right? It's basically his message.
This team's this year is pretty versus gritty versus the gritty versus pretty team that scared the hell out of Arkansas. And he talked about some of the selfishness with the at-bats. You hit 4 home runs, but you had a bunch of strikeouts.
3 solo jacks.
Yeah. And it's just you use the word enigma, and that's fair because of the draftable talent that you're going to see probably gone after this year. And guys have some super bright futures. But, man, you were wishing they could put it together one more time in Lincoln. And there's still time, but they still got to hang tough to get to Omaha. It wouldn't surprise any of us if they get hot and play launching pad at TD or Schwab Field come Big Ten tournament time. But they got to get there first, and that's not always a guarantee with them. We'll get into some more baseball with Sharpie, but they're tough. I mean, this time of year, Nebraska fans you want to move, just transition over to spring excitement from football to jump on the old baseball bandwagon. And it's hard to do just because of how many letdowns they've had midweek. I mean, Nebraska may not make the Summit tournament this year based on their record versus the Summit.
That's what's so crazy about it is, like, a month and a half ago, did you seriously consider that, Nebraska might not make the Big Ten tournament field?
Nope.
Like, dude, we're just talking about making your own conference's tournament field, right? And it's the Big Ten. You don't have, how many at-large teams are you going to get out of the Big Ten this year? One, maybe?
Maybe one. You'll get Maryland will be in, and
Iowa?
I don't know. Well, maybe. I mean, Iowa's in a log jam. Michigan's there. Indiana's better. Michigan State's number 2 in the league. And they've been a dormant program for a while.
It's so funny because, as Mark kind of alluded to, a month ago, we didn't think they'd miss the tournament because a month ago, our talking points with Husker Baseball were, well, they haven't gotten into the meat of the Big Ten schedule just yet. The RPI is low because of that. Like, once they start getting some tests and start getting some wins, they're going to start getting that respect that you think they deserve. And then you get into the heart of the Big Ten schedule. And thus far, what we've seen from this team in Big Ten play is they're no better than a middling Big Ten baseball program as it stands right now. They have probably 2 of the best hitters in the conference. Despite that, I mean, they're sitting at 9-7 in conference right now, I think. I think 2 more losses this weekend would put them at 500 in conference play, which in the Big Ten, you expect more out of with the fan interest that Nebraska gets, with the amount of dollars that Nebraska puts into their baseball program when compared to the other Big Ten institutions. You'd expect more with this Husker baseball program, and it's almost a little bit perplexing. I mean, there's issues that we've laid out where it feels like, you know what, when you get a good hitting performance, you get a good starting pitching performance, the bullpen lets you down, or you get a good hitting performance and your starting pitcher lets you down. You finally get a great pitching performance from your starter, from your bullpen. They only allow 3 runs, but that's the one night your offense only puts up 2. Whenever it's not one thing, it's been another with this Husker baseball program, and you've kind of waited for them to, as Mark said, put it all together, and it's never quite come into fruition like that.
And you see Bolt messing with the lineup, right? You see he's messed with that quite a bit because he's searching. You're looking, so you can count on, that you are going to get quality at bats and really good swings from Max. You're going to get that from Bryce. Doesn't mean they're going to go 4 for 4 every time. That's not baseball. It's not how it works. But you're going to have dudes that are having the right approach. And if Matthews strikes out once or twice, he's going to have really good contact on another couple, right? Mm-hmm. And then Max never strikes out, always putting the ball in play. Both those guys liable to go yard. And with their power numbers, you would hope that you could back Bryce up a little bit in the lineup. Put him in 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere around there. But he's batting him leadoff. At least against North Dakota State he was. I didn't see if he did again last night. Because you could tell they're just searching. They haven't found a leadoff guy. There's not somebody that's setting the table, right? You thought maybe Casey Burnham could be that guy, and he's been okay with it. But, against North Dakota State, I think he had 2-3 strikeouts. Your leadoff guy can't do that, dude. Like, at the bare minimum, be a Punch and Judy, slap it somewhere. Like,
hit it on the ground, Hayes.
Do something, right? Like, you got the speed, but so you can tell he's searching and still tinkering with that lineup, trying to figure it out. I'll tell you one guy that jumped out, though, and he could be an X factor. He did not throw last night, but he did throw actually 2 guys. 2 guys on the staff right now. So Christo is coming along. He got a little wild on Wednesday, too. he threw a couple in the dirt, passed ball, scored a run at one point. That was kind of his problem last year, but he was regularly mid-90s, right? And after, I think it was a good sign too, after he went wild, he recomposed himself and got out of the jam and pitched well. And last year, as soon as he got wild, like, dude was in his head and it was over, and you just had to yank him, right? So he's showing a little bit of maturity, and he's a big-time talent. Arm-wise, he's imposing. But then the other guy's Brett Sears. We haven't heard a ton about him, but he was 96 and above. I think he hit 97 on the gun at one point too. Thinner guy that really brings it. I mean, brings it. And Bolt was complimentary of him after the game also. He's only gone 14 innings this year, but he has 20 strikeouts and 4 walks. Right? So he's got control. He's 95 plus. He's young as hell. Doesn't know what he's doing really yet. But he was impressive against North Dakota State, came in, competed. They didn't touch him up. Bolt, after the game, was like, he's kind of looking like, I mean, he literally said this, like, unprovoked. He's starting to look like a weekend starter, is what he's starting to look like. And if, Nebraska's struggled to find that Sunday guy, the Friday and Saturday guy have been okay. They've been good. Good enough, put it that way. Good
enough's the word.
Not dominating, right? There's no Komine or Java or anything like that. But good enough. And you've been searching for that third reliable arm. Who knows? Maybe it could be. This is the optimistic point of view. Like, if Nebraska makes the tournament field, and if Christo continues to rise, and if Sears continues to rise, I think it changes the dynamic of your team, because you've been struggling in the bullpen, and you've also been struggling outside of Max and Bryce to just find that consistent spark that you can go with on the offensive side.
Trust has been a big issue with this team, meaning just the consistency part. You can't trust it. The consistency has been inconsistency. They've not been locked in or done their job midweek. And then you shift over to, well, just take care of the Big Ten anyway. Well, your 2 big tests, you get swept in Iowa. You better find a way to get one this weekend in Maryland. 2 opportunities today and tomorrow, and tough one, 8-4 last night. Elijah and I were kicking around a topic for football.
Yeah.
As it is the off season, and the other news we got was Keelan Smith, tight end out of the Kansas City area. We talked to Neil Smith yesterday, which was awesome.
Heard that. Yeah.
Neil's
good stuff.
Neil's good stuff, and really proud papa. And we really like Keelan's measurables, but our brain goes a little wild with what can be with his size, athleticism, and talent level. And I like Elijah's point, because Elijah's like, well, dude, it's Neil Smith's kid. Put him on the edge and let him go murder a quarterback. And that would be welcome for Nebraska's defensive prowess, trying to get in. And that's a staple and emphasis of Coach White and Coach Rhule. They want sacks. They want pressures. They want to get after the quarterback. So Smith's a nice get, really athletic. And Kraynak and Elijah will spend a second here on Smith, just again doubling down on area talent, and that's going to Kansas City. Dvorak being able to get in there and use some of his connections, because listen, Nebraska's still got a ways to go for their 2024 class, but they've done a really good job of getting regional talent, and that's important, but easier said than done. Not that the Nebraska brand has vanished in Kansas City or Kansas or Missouri or even Iowa, but it's not what it once was. So that's a little bit of a hurdle for Nebraska. But hey, a season or two in the sun for Nebraska, and things will open back up. But it's different now. Kleiman is going to go get the regional kids versus the old staple of Kansas State going JUCO. That was their niche. Drinkowitz in Missouri. I mean, they've made their way to Bell West to get Kalen, the quarterback, who's got a really good arm and wonderful touch. And then the state of Missouri in general, Nebraska always got difference makers from there. And Missouri's not only been in the SEC for a while, but a lot of those kids are staying home. And, Iowa's had a strong program for a while. And Nebraska has been very selective over the years with their Iowa talent, but those guys usually go play on Sundays. If Nebraska was able to get somebody pulled from Iowa, different world now, but Coach Rhule is accepting that challenge and score one for the Big Red getting Keelan Smith.
Yeah, and Keelan Smith, I love the bloodlines. Like, it doesn't always matter, if it doesn't always matter if you have the bloodlines from, your dad was good, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good. But I will say, Neil Smith was an absolute freak. And so, like, for someone like Elijah, who probably didn't grow up, well, not probably, mathematically and physically, did not grow up watching Neil Smith at all. You're talking about a guy that had, 13-year NFL career?
12 years, over 115 career sacks.
Right. Like, he's borderline Hall of Fame.
He is Hall of Fame.
But he's not actually in it.
No, I know, but you're right, though. I mean, he and Roger Craig are both no doubt guys, and this is maybe the homer in me coming out. Sorry, but they've done enough statistically on championship teams to be in.
Yeah, I mean, he won 2 rings with the Broncos after he left the Chiefs, which is just crazy to think about, going Chiefs to Broncos, but that actually happened. And he also had 4 double-digit sack years. He was a Pro Bowler 6 times. His combine, he ran a 4.5 at 6'4", 255.
That's right? Insane.
Yeah, and he had 32 and 32-inch hops. Like, so he's a freak athletically. And he had a son that was at Nebraska as a walk-on that never figured into much. But this one's a little different. His younger son, Keelan, does have some more interest, and I think he is one of those. I think he's one of those Swiss Army knife type guys. Mm-hmm. I think that's how Rhule looks at him. Like, right now, he's a wideout. They'll bring him in sometimes, and he'll play that kind of H-back type, put him in motion, he'll block. But he's got that frame, which, as I just mentioned with Neil, right? If you drop 30 pounds on Neil, he could play safety, right? You add 30, he's on the D line. Like, he's one of those kind of guys that has that. I think Randy Gregory was another one of those guys. Like, there are very few defensive linemen that you could say could also play safety, just depending on how you eat and work out, right? But that's legitimately how Neil was. And this is, I think his son has just one of those moldable frames where you're like, it's kind of all on the table with him. He could be receiver. He could be tight end. He could be hand in the dirt off the edge defensively. He could drop some pounds and be a safety. Like, you have a lot of options with a body type like that.
Yeah, and it's 6'3", 200 pounds, as you alluded to, Mark. Room to put on a whole bunch more, and like one of those guys that, I mean, the only positions on the team I couldn't see him playing are offensive line, running back, cornerback. I don't know. I don't know what his arm talent looks like, so probably not quarterback either. But one of those guys you can throw in anywhere, because I see him as a guy I mentioned on the show yesterday, kind of like a Kyler Reed on the offense, what he can do based on his film. You could even put in Chancellor Brewington in there with Chancellor Brewington's frame, like very versatile type frame. Can put him on offense. I can see him fitting that MJ Sherman role that we saw in the spring game, what MJ Sherman was doing as the outside jack linebacker for this Husker football team. I think that makes a lot of sense for him too. Really excited for the possibilities for a guy like Keelan Smith, and it kind of fits Matt Rhule's, again, recruiting philosophy of we're going to find the guys that are toolsy and we're going to turn them into football players. This guy that's with his frame, with his bloodlines, he's toolsy, and this coaching staff believes they can turn him into a football player.
Yeah. Question in from the stream. Big thanks to Moonboot for getting up with us on Saturday mornings for the weekend edition. And
Moonboot's
out. Moonbot. I can't read. I need my glasses. I need glasses. Moonbot 7. Big thank you.
We'll talk about that.
Out in Denver, but worried. Anyone else worried this year's offense going to mirror Frost's first 2 years of offense? That's a legit concern. I think
worried is a weird way to put it, though.
Because the first 2 years were actually some of the better years.
Well, you had a lot of good from Adrian that freshman season, and he had some talent around him, specifically the experience on the offensive line.
Like he had Washington.
I just think of those first 2 years, and I think there was a lot more instances where the defense was the one that was putting you behind the eight ball in games rather than the offense. Like the games where the offense struggled in those first 2 seasons, I think of at Michigan, home against Ohio State. Those are really the two that are coming to mind in terms of the offense struggling, the offense being the one that kept you out of football games. Most of the other games, it was a fourth quarter defensive collapse, or here's a Big Ten team that rushes for 250 yards on you, and you know what, they're able to salt the game away. Like I don't think of the offense as being the problem, and I understand where he's coming from in terms of I think he's saying not enough substance within the offense. Like they're gonna.
What's the plan gonna be? Right.
Like
what's the plan?
I don't think he's necessarily talking about results. I think he could be talking about what the offense actually looks like. But I didn't find that the offense was the issue with Scott Frost's teams the first 2 years, or really any of his time at Nebraska. It wasn't the offense.
I think you're going to see a fairly risk-averse offense out of Rhule these first couple years, bordering on even boring. I think in some cases, unless Sims operates outside of the structure of the offense. And the reason why I'm thinking that is I think you're going to be fairly limited with reliable targets on the edge. I think you have some talent there, but we'll see who emerges, right? You got Washington. You got Billy Kemp. Who knows if Xavier Betts is going to come along, right? Like you hope he does. Mm-hmm. But protection for Nebraska was so bad last year, right? So bad. Just protecting Casey Thompson or protecting your quarterback. You hope that takes a step up this year, but I'm sure they've watched that film. I'm sure Donovan Raiola has spoken about it, just like, yo. And it was sort of like, despite being that bad at protection, I mean, among the worst in the country, quite literally. Like Thompson was under siege. Despite that, Whipple was still just called 30 to 40 pass plays.
They had no desire to establish a run game.
Right.
It was let's hit eject as soon as we can because this is the offense I want to do. I want to chuck the damn ball around.
I know. And so I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see a fairly risk-averse offense out of Rhule this year, relatively speaking, compared to Frost's 2 years, where it was just like, you know, the risk-averse was no part of what they were doing in Frost's 2 years. But, and then the other reason why I say that too is just, you know, Rhule was on that podcast recently. Can't remember exactly who it was with, but where he mentioned that they're probably going to be a little bit more like they were at Temple. Mm-hmm. Those are his words. Yeah, I think we're going to run a little bit more like we are at Temple, which means getting in the eye, which means establishing the run, which means, you know, being a little more methodical. And that could translate into kind of boring and kind of frustrating and some 3 and outs if you're not able to establish. But I think they're going to be cognizant of controlling clock, protecting the defense, protecting the ball, and then, you know, just hoping to wear teams down. I think that's what you're going to see.
Yep, being physical in the fourth quarter. Rick chimes in. He's excited the offense. It'll be 10 times better. Moonbot.
In what metric? Rick,
well,
I don't, you know.
How about taking care of the football?
That would be welcome.
That's a big metric. Brandon Vogel's a big guy with turnover margin and that
equaling, you know, the spring
wins.
game there were 8 turnovers, so obviously,
yeah, they got them all out of their system in front of BTN audience and 60,000 plus. Brandon Vogel joins us, and he is in his football office at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter's where you follow him. Get the yearbook when you subscribe, hailvarsity.com/offer. Kraynak's going for a
more whiskey
second cup for more whiskey. Folks, are you having any whiskey this Kentucky Derby Saturday, or are you waiting till after the show?
Yeah, I'll wait until a little closer to post time. I think that's the way to play it. I'm still coming down, you know, from the high of Happy Coronation Day, guys.
Oh yes,
say that.
Oh man. God, wasn't that just magnificent?
It is. I mean, it's an inspiring story of if you just put in the diplomatic dirty work for a long time, if you go to various foreign countries and show your face, you too can be king one day. It's
that is just something really like. How about colonialism, everybody? Let's celebrate it, right? Let's just do that. Only 27% of Americans, I read yesterday, have a favorable opinion of the royal family, which checks out. I think that's on brand for us, since
I'm not too favorable towards the royal family. Not like I just don't care. Like, I
mean, it's kind of spurred the existence of this country, so I think that checks out brand wise, right? I mean, I don't know.
Well, do you guys remember, like, what was it, almost a year ago, whenever was it Prince Harry released that, like, tell-all autobiography that just was, like, way too personal, like, sharing details about personal lives that should never be shared? Like, what was that happened?
Was not good. The, Uncle Andrew needs to be thrown in the hole for a while. I mean, that guy's a clown. It's like all of us have trials with our family, but not to the degree of the royal family.
The royal family is just like the English version of America's Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I swear it's just all about gossip at this point. Like,
have you guys seen the Chris Rock special on Netflix yet? The new one?
No. I did.
Like, please, okay. He touches on that about Meghan Markle, about, the people having a victim mentality and her being surprised that they were racist. He's like, they're the royal family. Like, they're the original racists. Come on.
Good old. We have a Chris Rock sighting here at 8:08 on a Saturday morning. I like it. Vogues, let's spend a little bit of time with this topic. And year one is around the corner. I know you're doing your yearbook previews right now with Nebraska's schedule, and you're hip deep and also trying to kind of gather and gauge this football team. Success in year one is what? And Elijah, we kind of kicked this around. When you talk about teams that are good, they usually have some sort of monster they have to vanquish. And this, I was watching Last Dance last weekend, and the story of the Bulls overcoming Cleveland, but more so overcoming the Pistons, right? Jordan and the Bulls finally getting by the bad boys, and then off they went. Eventually, Indiana tried to take Chicago down. They got by Chicago because, Jordan retired. The Knicks finally got by Chicago because, Jordan went to go play baseball. You get my point. And for a long time, Nebraska's was chasing who? They were chasing Oklahoma and probably whoever was playing in the Orange Bowl, right? Those are the two or three teams that Nebraska was chasing. Who the hell's Nebraska chasing right now? Are they chasing Nebraska? Because we can't pick one Big Ten team that's had their foot on Nebraska's chest. Everyone's had their turn at Nebraska the last few years. It's not that Nebraska's gone winless, but they have not stacked together consecutive wins against anybody. Not even Northwestern. So let's talk about ground zero here for a moment. Will Compton says 9-3. I love that clip from him with his Bussin' podcast earlier this week. He's optimistic. But there's been a lot of other teams that have climbed, including Illinois. Minnesota's been steady. Iowa's been to a conference title game or on the verge of it last year. Nebraska knocked them off. That was a fun win for a lot of Nebraska fans. Wisconsin's going through transition, but they're still okay. They've still got Braylon Allen. So it's let's dig in here with Nebraska trying to just stabilize in this first year.
Yeah, what I'm hearing there, Schmitty, is you're saying Tanner Morgan is Michael Jordan. And
no,
since he's out of the league now, everything's fine. No.
Wow.
I would put it.
You went there.
I would put it this way. I think the monster Nebraska has to slay is the mundanity of winning football games in the Big Ten. Speaking of Tanner Morgan, like, guy played a lot of football. When he was really good, he was really good. When he wasn't, he was just kind of at his base level. But Wisconsin was able to win. I mean, not Wisconsin. Minnesota was able to win a bunch of games with him that way, including 4 straight over Nebraska. The Iowa streak over Nebraska was 7 before last year. And like, we talk about it all the time, like, it's not a particularly appealing brand of football all the time, but you have to respect it. And kind of, I think the way this staff talks about it, it kind of has a plan for, like, we're not only do we not care if we have to win ugly, if that's what it has to look like we're actively preparing for it. I'm not going to let the quarterbacks throw indoors because you got to be ready for the wind. And we're going to make the kickers kick in the stadium because that's where you're going to be kicking. All of that stuff is like little kind of, well, it's like, Charles with the diplomatic dirty work we were talking about earlier. You got to do that stuff. Like, you got to get in there and kind of do the tough jobs. And I think that's the biggest thing. And how does that look like on defense, offense? Like, we could talk about numbers there, but it's just, it's kind of putting in the work. And it's something that I think you look at Nebraska since 2011, it's one of those things that probably would have been tough to know coming in from the Big 12. Like, you could have had an idea, but until you get in there and experience it. And then with so much turnover, over that stretch, like, they've just never really gotten there to the point where it's like, hey, we're okay if we do this like Northwestern and Iowa.
Yeah. Brandon Vogel is with us. And Brandon, I'm curious how much you looked into in Matt Rhule's past at Temple or at Baylor. Like, it maybe throwing out the first year because that, first years were obviously terrible with weird roster situations. But like, once he had kind of his program underway, did you notice anything turnover margin wise? Have you even looked into that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it just seems like they're going to have this more risk averse approach. And I'm just wondering if you noticed anything there.
I hadn't looked at it that closely, but I've got CFB stats open right here, so don't mind me typing. So
yeah, please do.
In 2015, they were 51st in turnover margin. So basically, they were +3. And then we'll look at their 2016.
Nebraska hasn't been plus in how long?
2012.
Yeah.
Like that? Yeah.
Yeah, and so in 2016 they were 56th, so middle of the road. And now let's go to the good Baylor year.
Yeah, that would have been what, 2019, 2020?
2019 they were 68.
Okay. So they weren't. It wasn't detrimental to them. Wasn't necessarily a plus, but it was sort of like they held serve in that category. Whereas Nebraska has been really digging themselves a hole for like a decade.
Yeah, I would say those, not recalling those numbers off the top of my head, I would say those are very good things because you're like right smack dab in the fat part of the bell curve, which means, 2019's run from kind of out of nowhere for Baylor wasn't fueled by being +18 or something like that, which, like, you'll take it if you can get it, but you just can't count on getting it all that often. So not bad.
Well, then, Brandon, what's a stat you think Husker fans should track here this upcoming season to gauge how successful this team is? You can pick one from turnover margin, yards per carry. The one I think I'd leave out is scoring differential. That's the one that might be a little bit too obvious in terms of if you're having a good season or not. Maybe leave that one off the table. But what stat are you picking in terms of Husker fans follow this one? If it's good, Nebraska's probably finding some success relative to where they've been the last couple of years. If there's poor results in this stat category, Nebraska's probably not going to be living up to fan expectations.
Yeah, I would say on offense is probably yards per carry. I think as we get a little bit closer towards the the 2023 season, how well they're able to run the football, I think is going to determine how well they're able to move the ball and put up points. Like we've heard them say they want to run the football. I believe that. That said, if you're not running it all that successfully, well, it kind of looks like a lot of the past, 4 or 5 seasons where it was clear, I saw the question earlier about those first 2 years of offense. 2018 was the only year Nebraska averaged 30 plus points under Frost, and they were exactly at 30. And it was largely due, in my mind, that was the best look we had at, I think, the run game Nebraska wanted. And it came with the highest point total. Last year, Nebraska, now obviously coaching change mid-season, averaged 23 points a game. But they were also at like 23 points a game in 2020, which, again, that was only conference play. But so getting to that 30-point mark, I think is what Nebraska probably needs to have a bowl season. Like if you hit 30 and you don't make a bowl in the Big Ten, I'll be very, very surprised, unless the defense has given up like 34. But I don't think that's in the cards either.
And let's just look just where Nebraska is coming from last year. And philosophy matters, play calling matters, all that stuff matters. But in conference, here's Nebraska's numbers running the ball. 2.84 yards a carry, 90 yards a game.
100th and first,
dude,
in the nation.
Yeah. But in conference, even worse. In the non-con, they were close to 5 yards a carry, right? So that is scary. So that's where Nebraska's coming from now. And it's not like, so this kind of surprised me too when you look at that. They did average about 32 running attempts per game, which isn't a ton, but it's not completely abandoning it either. So that's where they're springing from.
Let's see when those carries happened. Those carries happened early in the ball game with your backup quarterback, or early in the ball game with your starting quarterback, Casey Thompson. But when push came to shove. Let's see if Trey's down there somewhere. Is that right, Elijah? Is that the thought bubble?
I believe it was F Trey's down there somewhere.
Yes, yeah. So let's go deep. Let's go downtown. Nebraska couldn't do it to Whipple's satisfaction, and then wouldn't do it. Couldn't do it, wouldn't do it. Can't do it, won't do it. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have the philosophy is going to be welcomed here by me because. Yeah. What haven't we seen this offensive line do? We've seen them attempt to pass block on known passing situations or situations in a ball game where, they've already hit eject on the run game. So it is, let's throw it every down. So little offensive balance can maybe do some wonders for what you do in the run game. And then you factor in a mobile quarterback. That's something your defense has to pay attention to. So a 1-2 punch in the run game with an I-back, maybe you have a fullback trap in there, right? And then you have a mobile quarterback to scare you. It could get a lot better quickly. Maybe I'm too optimistic there. But let's see whoever settles in with these starting 5, what they can do firing off the ball. They all wear the run the damn ball hats. Let them do it. And I think they'll get a chance to it this first year under Satterfield.
Yeah, that's part of why I think it is a really good health check for Nebraska, certainly on offense, but probably for the team overall, of how well can you do that. And I happen to have my yearbook spreadsheet here. So those conference only rushing numbers you mentioned, Mark, and this is the case often in the Big Ten West, and kind of goes back to the larger point of, can you just get comfortable like doing what you have to do to win this? Iowa in the yards per carry allowed second nationally. Wisconsin was third. Michigan was 18th. Illinois was 10. It's you're running into some pretty toothy, tough offense or defenses. But like if that's your plan, you still got to be able to do it. And we're not going to, I don't think, get to the end of the year and see them at 5 yards per carry in Big Ten play. But you sure as heck got to be better than 2.5.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be. I think what we're likely to see is an offense that's committed to running it, but maybe doesn't break a lot of big ones. I think your best chance for that to happen is going to be Anthony Grant making a move. Really. That's why the departure of A.J. Allen was a little frustrating, because he doesn't need everything to go right to make a play. I feel like Irvin's one of those guys that he's sort of like the equivalent of a system quarterback at running back. He's a system running back, like he'll do well if you got the holes, and he's, if you don't have a great angle on him, he'll break that tackle. But I think Grant can do some stuff off schedule. Hey, real quick, Brandon, I don't know how you divvy up who does the opponent previews in the yearbook, but I would like to take the Colorado one if you haven't started that yet. And I can just tell you right now, the content, each category, I just want to put TBD, see hailvarsity.com in August for each section. I really think that's all you have to do. And so, yeah, I would just like to contribute that to the team, because what the hell are you even supposed to write for that? Like, Colorado is going to wear black and gold and maybe some silver sometimes, and that's about all we know.
Yeah, I actually just finished the offense half of Colorado this morning, right before I hopped on with you guys. So defense is still available. That'll save me a lot of time now that I know I can use 6 words instead of the about 175 I did. So that's nice. I had the thought. I'm a little bit surprised Colorado even posts a roster at this point. They should do. They'll just be like, yeah, we'll see you in August. This will be finalized. They have 9 offensive linemen right now coming out of the spring game.
Wow.
On the roster. Their transfers they got a transfer from Florida. They've got a transfer O-lineman from Jackson State, Missouri State, and Kent State, who basically came with Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator. The skill position talent, they're going to find that. I don't think there's much doubt there, but the talk in, football circles is can you do it in the trenches? And not only can you get talented players, because that Colorado team was really, really bad last year, and they've lost some players that they didn't want to lose, in my opinion, or shouldn't have wanted to lose. Maybe not so much on the offensive line. Though one of their outgoing transfers went to Florida State. So it's just that's the big question. Can you build a functional offensive line, guys that have to really work together more than anybody else out of whatever's out there in the portal? They've got 2 junior college guys coming in. That's the question for Colorado for me. Alongside, who are their other 30 scholarship players that they need?
The Buffs did land. They got 1 edge rusher from Florida State and then a former 5-star from the Huskies from Washington to commit. So they've got a couple of potential dudes, but yeah, the depth part's no good. Scary Gary asks a phenomenal question. Why do we cover a team who's not made a bowl game in years like they're Alabama?
And I'm just thinking of this as being some Gary Sharp burner account that he goes on to say his feelings that he can't actually say on the air. He makes an account called Scary Gary and just goes.
We'll ask Sharpie that here in about 10, 15 minutes. Do you go by Scary Gary? Is that your alter ego? R.I. Bell is right on. The fans, dude.
Yeah. Well, why do we cover a team who has not made a bowl game in years like they are Alabama? I don't think we cover them like they're Alabama.
He's talking about the attention.
Attention.
Yeah.
Well, we have this whole radio show thing, and there's a lot of fans that go to the game. Well, it's not a radio show. It's an audio show on the weekends.
There's a radio show, too.
Look, but I understand Gary's sentiment here. I think sometimes we ask ourselves that same question, or we're just like, my God, what are we doing?
I mean, you know what's crazy? I've been doing this radio show for years now, and I've never seen a winning season. I was a junior in high school last time Nebraska had a winning football season, and I ask myself the same question sometimes. I go, man, why is there still so much interest around Husker football with the recent results? And it's because of just how ingrained Husker football is within the culture of the state of Nebraska. I think it's as simple as that. Is the state culture of Nebraska, really, when you boil it down, is football.
It's a love affair is what it is. You love to see them do well. You love to cheer for them. if you're a Nebraska fan, and they are your pro team. They are your college team, and they are your team that, man, when it's great, it's awesome. And for the most part, they've been at such a high level for such a long time. You still love seeing how the team's going to do this year. I love, my grandparents lived out west. My grandpa was alive. It was so much fun to head out there, kind of the McCook region, and you sit down at a restaurant, or you go fishing and his fishing buddies. So as I'm stuck on a tree stump somewhere, and he's still fixing my fishing line, even in my 30s. It's like, so Chris, how's the old team going to be this year? I mean, it was just clockwork once summer hit, and probably as soon as the season got done, you started thinking about next season. People care and want to see it successful. So,
Yeah.
But it really, the test of time and really the investment has been frustrated, but not waned. And that, you can't say that. I mean, think about the programs. Oklahoma, Alabama, they had a down decade.
Yeah.
And they took hits in Tuscaloosa and in Norman.
Yeah.
And it was pretty big hits. Folks still cared. They got it right and fixed, obviously Saban and Stoops. But I mean, the attendance, while has not what it was, it's still insane. It's still to the brim. And I know there's been some talking points about, well, the sellout streak, is it real? Is it authentic? Yada, yada, yada. Point is someone's still choosing to go watch a sub-500 football team.
Yeah. And well, you got to, I think, when you have generations, you have essentially 40 years of excellent football. Doesn't mean necessarily championship football every single time, but you have 40 years of legitimate excellence. And Nebraska fans are going to rally around it. That's why volleyball is the same thing. That's why Nebraska sells out volleyball, because it is the peak of what you can do in that sport, and it kind of makes no sense in a state this small, right?
Good
just kind of right. It just kind of makes no sense. Like, it doesn't, like, a clear outlier, and I think fans just appreciate that. And so you have a 40-year stretch of people that grew up that are just like, that know it can happen here, and just keep coming back to see if it does again. So I think that's what it is.
Brandon Vogel's with us. It's Hail Varsity Weekend Edition at Brandon L. Vogel. On Twitter is where you follow him. Read him with HailVarsity.com and magazine. Again, the yearbook. Vogues, let's go there. I mean, I'm so excited to see this year's yearbook. And HailVarsity.com/offers where you go to subscribe. You're hard at work many mornings knocking out the opponent preview, the Nebraska rundown, and what's the well, give us a little playbook here on the yearbook here, man. What can folks expect? I know you're in the midst of putting it together.
Yeah. Hard at work on that. We've got a good complement of feature stories, I think, coming. Obviously, we've got a big milestone date for Memorial Stadium, which Mike Babcock is tackling for us. We'll have some good player profiles. A story from Aaron Sorensen, I think that's going to be pretty interesting on the offensive line, which we all agree is key this year, but every year in the state of Nebraska, we'll go through position by position, and then, as we've sort of talked about, the thing that I'm working on at the moment and I'm elbow deep in is those opponent previews, which, are the back third of the magazine, but a ton of time and a ton of work goes into those. Yeah. To Scary Gary's point, I'm going to treat Louisiana Tech like Alabama here later today, because that's the way to do it. And I really do appreciate that. There's a reason that I like doing these opponent previews, because I just like college football. I like to think about what Northern Illinois is and what it's trying to be.
Brandon, before we get you out of here and as we get ready to welcome in Gary Sharp, I don't want you to give away too much from the yearbook, but as you look kind of wait to really look ahead at these opponent previews, which team do you think Husker fans are not talking about enough on Nebraska's schedule? Which team do you think, you know what, that's a scary football team. We might not be talking about them as much as we should be.
Scary Gary football team.
Maybe Maryland, a team that comes to town, kind of quietly had 2 pretty decent seasons, bringing their quarterback back, a good quarterback. They're always going to be talented, probably more talented. Well, certainly I think more talented in the Big Ten West at most skill positions. Like Maryland's got a chance here, I think, to be pretty tough this year. It's sometimes easy to overlook it in the East because, heck, Penn State's got a chance to be really, really good. Not on Nebraska's schedule, but it's just like, are you better than Ohio State or Michigan? They went 11-2 last year, and it was like, oh yeah, Penn State. But Maryland would be my pick for right now.
I like the Maryland answer. People seem to forget that Maryland is also, in terms of monetary investment with their football program, playing with the big dogs. They're paying Loxley like $6 million this year. They're not joking around.
Yep. They got Under Armour all up in there, dropping money. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They have the most ridiculous helmets that give you seizures.
They did away with them. They did away with them. No more crazy Maryland helmets. They're going back to this script Terps on the side.
Oh,
the more you know.
The old Boomer Esiason tribute.
That was too much. That was too much. That's a good decision. And Brandon, as a uniform connoisseur, I'm sure you agree. Like, I'm sure you appreciated the uniqueness of what they did, but at the same time, like, I don't know about that execution, bro.
Yeah, I did appreciate the uniqueness of it, but like the carnival airbrushing is not for me.
Yeah,
I'm just glad they've got a head coach that when there's a bathroom wall full of urinals, Loxley's unlikely to stand right next to you with so many choices. Durkin was not. Hey, partner, how you doing? At media days.
Really?
Yeah, dude, it was a little frightening.
So he just rolled right. That's a violation. You cannot do that.
Well, the question is, at the urinals, were there dividers between each urinal? If there's dividers, okay. Yeah, no. Then you have to have at least one of buffer zone.
It's if you have the divider, to a movie theater with a buddy, there's a space between.
If
that's not a time to talk.
If you have the divider between the urinals, it makes it a little bit more okay to like stand right next to me. I still rather not talk to you, but like I get that. No divider, stay the hell away from me.
I think Sharpie and Vogues both remember the McCormick Palace, right? Even the main floor restrooms, they're spotless, they're gorgeous, they're huge, and you're just doing your thing, which is fine. Coach, you wouldn't come on the show, fine, no worries, but we're all talkative at the trough.
Listen, no. Poop rules need to apply at the urinal too. Listen, when you're pooping in stalls next to each other, you don't talk, right? Like you don't. It's not like you're sitting over there like, hey, how's it going over there? Dropping one too? Like no, you don't talk. And it's same with when you're at the urinals. There's no. You don't discuss anything. You look ahead. You get your business done. You retreat. Moonbot chimes in with a comment. I bet Rhule whistles at the pisser. I don't know.
GBR.
I mean, just like what? Whistling patience? Like what?
It's probably.
I doubt it.
Good call.
I tell you what, guys, this is some high quality
issues. He dribbles a little bit, so
Vogues wants
high quality
to eject right now. So does Sharpie. He's going to spill his coffee on his computer intentionally.
I feel like I should tell my story of going to the bathroom in the urinal next to Vince Neil.
Oh, dude, please.
House of Blues, Los Angeles. I had maybe a couple of hockey pops in me, and in strolls Vince, and he comes up next to the urinal, and I kind of looked over a little bit to my left, and I'm like, is that Vince Neil, or is that somebody that looks like him? And then I realized it more. I was like, that's Vince Neil. So, I said, hey, what's up? And he just said, hey. And I was like, okay, that's Vince Neil. So I got a picture. I let him do. You
got a picture of what now?
Gary. We both finished. We both timed it right. We were both at the sink washing our hands. And we walked out, and his porn star girlfriend was waiting for him. And I said, hey, can we get a picture? And he jokingly said, with me or her? And I said, oh, with her. And so somehow Vince Neil jumped in our picture. So that's my brush with greatness at the urinal.
Who is the actress?
I have no idea. I just know that there were parts of her that were bigger than other parts.
Sure. No, good answer. Good answer. Harry Carey is someone I ran into in the can.
Okay.
And then I got to go next to Jerry Tarkanian when he was alive, when he was back for the Fresno State game. Doc Sadler brought him.
Okay.
So the Tark was there.
See, we're going to lose these moments, especially at places like Memorial Stadium, when they slowly start to get rid of the troughs.
Yeah. Yes.
I got a friend that stink palmed Mac Brown down in Texas.
What?
Yeah. This is his phraseology. He says he comes out of the bathroom, right?
No.
Yeah, no. My friend Brian, he comes out of the bathroom.
Hasn't
even got to wash his hands yet. And Mac Brown's like, hey, Mac, goes out to shake his hand. And Brian's like, he's like, so I did it, but I felt terrible. I was just like,
he went Poppy and Seinfeld, did he?
You just got stick palmed, man. I don't know.
How about that 3-5?
Yeah,
I know. I got to run. On that note, I got to run baseball tournament.
I appreciate you, bud. Thanks so much.
Godspeed, y'all.
And Brendan, thanks for sitting over for an extra 7 minutes. Vogue's got the hell out of here.
Vogue's is like, I'm done. I'm ducking in cover. Sharpie, how the hell are you? Good to spend time with you.
Good. I can't believe. Well, one, I've been up since 4 watching, the coronation of King Charles. So the Royals have let me down this season, so I have to find one Royal that maybe is likable. I don't know. You know what? It's hard to believe that it's the first weekend in May. I mean, and the weather has not really had a long stretch of warm weather, so I don't know. It's just weird that it's the first part of May, but no, doing well. It was another busy week, by the way. I loved your chat with Neil Smith yesterday.
Thanks,
How
man.
cool is so? Let me ask both of you, and I said this on my show, and Keelan is a very interesting prospect because of his size. He feels like a Matt Rhule recruit to me, where he's 6'3", 200. He could play on either side of the ball. But if you put 15 to 20 pounds on him, all of a sudden he's a tight end H-back, or could he play on the edge? So it kind of fits like, okay, these are the Matt Rhule type recruits. They get him in, they develop him, they put some weight on him. But I almost thought leading up to yesterday that recruit should have gotten more run because of who his dad is. And it's not like his dad has been excommunicated from Nebraska football. Neil comes back quite a bit. He just is very quiet when he comes back for game days. But I think that's a good pickup for Nebraska. And I'm excited. I mean, the more we get of Neil Smith back in Lincoln, I think is the better. But will his son wear number 99?
That'd be incredible, especially if he's on offense. He's going with the old 99er. Can you wear 99 on offense?
Nowadays, I think you can wear anything.
Sure. Because, it's gone the other way for years defensive line-wise. Guys wanted single-digit numbers like Levante or Randy or Malik Collins. No, I think 99, that'd be a really cool tribute. No, Neil's been just a lot of fun. When I started in this industry and with you and Billy D, I would get to go do some events, and some of those events you had former Huskers on, so part of that was Neil Smith for years at the Jack Pierce golf tournament, and just kept in connection with Neil from time to time. And, he was really gracious to get back, because it's been 3 years since we at least said, hey, or what's up. But no, you're right, man. If he can get back, and, you look at his son, Keelan, I love the fact he's from where he's from, and it's not a token given anymore that Nebraska beats K-State or Missouri out for a good recruit in their backyard. Nebraska needs to start winning on the field more to continually do that. But I'm intrigued by where he goes, and I think this staff will look at him and say, this is where you're going to kill it. And I think he'll get developed. That's big. We were talking a little bit about expectations in year one. And, the statistic that'll help define Nebraska's success, yards per carry allowed, or what they're averaging, sack total, turnover margin. What's a statistic you're interested in here in 2023?
I think yards per carry allowed. because I think that I still have a lot of worries about that defensive line, and especially with depth. Are there guys on that defensive line that can go and give you 40 to 45 snaps, or is it just going to be a combination of guys? But they have to be able to stop the run in this league. And if they can stop the run and get off the field, because I think this defense will get off the field. I think when Tony White will find a way with the personnel that he has to work it where they can catch teams off guard. Now, will they have like big first halves and people adjust at halftime and then it's the next chess move? I'll be curious to see that. But I think this will be a defense that'll have a better chance of getting off the field, but they got to stop the run. I mean, that's where it all starts in this league. And then, of course, running the ball. But I think stopping the run, because that says a statement. If you make a team with one hand tied behind their back and one-dimensional, I think you got a good shot to be very, very good in this league. So that would be what I would go with.
Gary, a lot of coaches that haven't coached before in the Big Ten have encountered a learning curve when first coaching in the Big Ten. Scott Frost, a great example of that. But you can look elsewhere in the Big Ten and see that a lot of times there is a small learning curve to playing in the Big Ten. I want to get your thoughts on Matt Rhule and his learning curve. Does playing at Penn State as a walk-on almost 30 years ago eliminate the learning curve that's required, or do you see areas of his style that it's going to require a change from him, or at least you worry about needing a change down the road because of how it works in terms of in the Big Ten and at Temple might not work in the Big Ten?
See, that's a great question, Elijah, because here's what happened with Scott. And this is directly from the head coach because I asked him. So when he made the comment at his opening press conference about how the Big Ten will have to adjust to them, there were coaches in the Big Ten that were very intrigued by the Scott Frost hire because they thought, man, they might have something here. But once he uttered those words, people in Iowa City, and I know this for a fact, they were like, we got him. And I don't think physically they were not ready to go through the Big Ten. They were not physically. And then there's the other part. I think that staff greatly underestimated the quality of football in the Big Ten. And it took them a year and a half, 2 years to even adjust to that. I don't think it'll be the case with this staff because you look where a lot of guys have come from. All right, your defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator coming from Power 5 football programs. You have guys that are coming from the NFL. Your head coach was at a Power 5 level. So I think they respect the league and they respect the coaches that are in this league. So I don't think they will overestimate. And I think you've heard Rhule allude to it. And just look at his talk about running the football. What do teams that win, at least for one more year, Nebraska's division, they're very good at running the football when they want to. And so I think he's recognized that, and I don't think he will overlook it. But that's a great point, Elijah, because you have to be cognizant of what this league does and what this league does well. You can't go, oh, it's just the West. Well, you know what? Nebraska's done that for a while, and look where they've been in the West. It's a good football conference that has good coaches in it. And I would tell you that you look at Ryan Walters, I think is going to be really good at Purdue. Bielema has proved that program. Fleck is no pushover. So that won't catch them off guard. And I'm glad that they've made no kind of like bones of, well, we're looking at the West. They respect the West. And I think that has also to do with their background.
Gary Sharp's with us. Hail Varsity Weekend. We're presented by Currency. And how many times have we heard Rhule say it? I got to figure out how to win here. Yeah. He said it about Baylor. He said it about Temple. And he's diving into the Big Ten, and his background with Penn State is going to be helpful. But when we talk about the offensive identity and just the outlook of it, in his podcast, that national 24/7 podcast he did last week, and then it dropped earlier this week or whenever it was posted. Really good listen with that podcast, but a little more revealing with some national guys that they are going to try and play some bully ball. They are going to use the tight ends. And Gary, do you think the personnel on the offensive line, however the starting five shake out and the depth, have we seen them really have a chance to be good at run blocking? Because it's been kind of all helter-skelter with coordinators and O-line coaches. There's been a lot of transition, is my point. Do you think this offensive line can get unlocked in the run game this season?
That's the mystery question. I think that's why you continue to hear Matt Rhule building up their confidence and talking about them. whether he truly believes it or not, publicly, he's basically putting it all on their plate that Nebraska will move forward as much as the offensive line likes to carry him. And I think their coaching is a little bit different on some of the things they're doing, like coming off the ball, moving guys off the ball, which they weren't doing last year. Let's be honest. We all know this is no secret. There was not a great connection between the head coach and the offensive line coach, whether it be Greg Austin or Donovan Rilo, and then you throw in the offensive coordinator. And I think those three positions, and I'm using the head coach as a position, they all are interconnected. I noticed during the spring. And so I think that'll benefit some guys. But I think first and foremost, guys feeling good about their body. I mean, look at Bryce Benhart. And Bryce Benhart's got to come a ways. Now, when Rhule says he's an NFL guy, I want to see it for 60 minutes on a Saturday because there are glimpses in the spring where he went, man, that guy looks different. But guys' bodies look different. Guys were so stiff in the way that they lifted and they built their bodies. And so guys maybe weren't unlocked. And so I'll be curious to see that they feel better about their bodies. And as they go through summer conditioning and they get faster, winter is for bulking, summer is for speed. If that affects guys' mindsets and they feel like they can do more, and then all of a sudden these guys that we've said, man, where have you been? They look different, but they've got to stay healthy. I mean, first and foremost, Teddy Prohaska has to stay healthy. Knock on wood, they've gotten Fedoni this long healthy. They need to get Teddy on the field where he stays healthy and he can make it into October and he can make it into November.
Gary Sharp is with us here. It's the Saturday morning edition of Hail Varsity Radio. And Gary, whenever you look at that offensive line and even the defensive line as well, how physically ready for the Big Ten do you think those guys are? You mentioned the body transformation, and I think you can see that with the offensive line. On the defensive line, there were some injuries that changed how that defensive line's going to look. And I guess you could say the same for the offensive line as well. But I look at a defensive line with guys like Cameron Linhart and Prince William Amelin, and then you also have A.J. Rollins as well. All those guys just a little bit light in terms of Big Ten defensive linemen. I worry about how they're going to hold up in the run, and whenever I try to use the offensive line and their performance against them as a comparison, it's hard to compare that defensive line to the greater Big Ten. So I want to get your thoughts on just how close the lines of scrimmage are physically to what Matt Rhule wants them to be.
Defensive line's going to be a bit. Now Hutmacher has been through the battles before. Judy's coming from the SEC, so he's got that going for him. It's going to be the three guys that you pointed out. Two of those guys, speed is going to be their biggest friend at the beginning of their career, where they can get by guys before they're locked up. But physically, it's going to be a little bit. At least you have a couple of guys that have played Power 5 football, so they're used to that physicality. But here's the thing. In terms of how they're coached, because it's not just, hey, we're not physically strong enough to face a 330-pound offensive lineman from Minnesota. It's how do they handle the technique? Do they keep an offensive lineman off of them? What's their first move? What's their explosive move to get away from that so they don't get locked up? So there's a lot that goes into it. But physically, there'll be some guys that this will be a challenge in the first year because they're just not used to it. I mean, A.J. Rollins has come a ways and he's got a body, but is it fair to him to throw him in and all of a sudden he's locked up with that 330-pound offensive lineman at Minnesota? But, we'll see. I think speed initially will be huge for some of these guys to stay off of blocks so that they don't get locked up and they can stay free.
Gary Sharp's with us. Sharpie, are you a big Kentucky Derby guy? Have you been? Do you want to go? And are you putting a wager down? So, do you have any insight for us?
So I've never been. I've been to Churchill Downs, but they were not running the Kentucky Derby. I do pay attention to horse racing a little bit more with our, what we can do here in this state and across the river from Omaha. Yes. So for people out there, and don't hold this against me, this is just what I like today. And I have to look at something because I just saw something come across. The favorite Forte just got scratched.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah, that's going to change some people's tickets. So Forte, who is a 9-2 favorite, just got scratched. I like Angel of Empire today. I like the 17. I like the Japanese horse, and then I like 2 fills. So, we're just playing along here on Hail Varsity Radio.
Gary, this is a question I think we talked about last year.
I saw you writing down my picks there, Schmidt.
I do.
Gary,
no on Forte.
That's like in the horse racing business. They've had some bad PR this week. They've had 4 horses die at Churchill Downs. They've had to have some scratches, and to have on the morning of the Derby on a horse that was getting a lot of money. That's a big scratch, and I'm curious to see why the owner, Todd Pletcher, who's got another great horse in this race, why he scratched Forte.
Well, as long as Forte lives to race another race, I think that'll be a happy ending. But Gary, if you were naming a horse, this is something we talked about last year, and the horse had to be named in some way, shape, or form in a Husker-related way, what would you name your Kentucky Derby horse?
Mine would actually...
You're thinking of something else, aren't you?
Well, because I thought the question was going to be, if you had to name yourself, if you were a horse, what would your name be? But I remember this discussion from last year, and this was a good discussion. I would probably go Susu Baby.
Okay. Susu Baby.
See, I remember the one that Brandon brought up last year that I really liked was Man, Woman, and Child. I thought that was a good horse name.
That's why we need to go in on a horse, even if it doesn't move forward, and we need to name it that and run them at Nebraska tracks and see how much money comes in on them, because people go, oh my God, is that Lyle Bremser's horse?
I mean, the options are endless in terms of getting money from Nebraskans. You go Black 41 Flash Reverse. That's a great name for a horse too. I like Man, Woman, and Child. Susu Baby works. We got Tom saying Wingback Reverse. The options are endless. Yeah. You could make a lot of money off of Husker fans by naming a horse something creative.
It's still the one and only Fumblerooski.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, that would be
short side option.
Now you could just start naming them after plays.
Ooh, name one after Kent Pavelka and go Bangarang.
You could just do the fullback trap.
Yeah. Smile Tom.
See, they're endless. See, why'd they have to tear down Exarban? I mean, it could have been happening.
Well, listen, what you got's pretty sweet. What you had was fun.
Yeah. I mean, this might be too long in the horse world. How many tackles can a man break?
Right. The old Jim Nance call.
Down goes Frazier.
Nice catch, Matt.
See, we need to be in the horse business. See, that's always the mystery of how horses get their name. Some people will own horses and they'll name them after kids or special moments in their life. I want to be on the committee that names horses when people are stumped.
Sure.
Scoring explosion.
Sure. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Someone pay us for these names, dude.
Well, and I think Mike Babcock had the nickname of Neil Smith when he got to here. When he got to Nebraska, was scrap iron or some sort of, because Neil took a course in welding or something. So we could. I forget if it was scrap iron or something like that. I got to check with Babbers, but that's
the BCS.
Oh, okay, sure.
And then when
Carl,
when the horse wins, Bo will be in the winner's circle, and he will just say, when they say, "Hey, tell us about your horse," and he goes, "That's why they made the call."
Sure, that works. That works well. So Moonbot says Angel of Empire hit show, and Two Phils are his win play show.
Okay, that's smart man.
You go take 100 and put her down.
Are we spending your money?
We're gonna spend her money. She just left.
Yeah. Gotta wait for the sports book in town to open up first, Smitty.
Well, I think I can still do horse racing.
Can you Kentucky Derby? Is that allowed? I don't even know.
I think it is.
Yeah, because it should be, as long as they are running an off-track betting, because here in Omaha you can.
Sure.
See, I'm not enough of a degenerate to know about the horse track racing. I'm sorry.
There's economic opportunity is how we phrase it.
What are we gonna? I know we're getting up here against time. Nebraska baseball.
Oh yeah, I wanted to avoid that.
Well, so they're 3-7 in their last 10. They're playing a really good team. I said yesterday, you could make the case with this team, they're either going to get swept or they'll win 2 of 3. Well, they lost last night. I think you have to really be cautious because if this weekend doesn't go well tomorrow or today and tomorrow, then you're looking at a scramble to make sure you're playing in Omaha. It's just, this is one of the most maddening teams in a long time. And I know Will's frustrated, can't put his finger on it. They're very, very inconsistent. They do a very good job at being uneven as well. There are things that they're doing well that make sense. And then there's other things that you go, wow, how come you can't do that consistently? I think today's a pretty important day for Nebraska baseball because if you don't win today, it's going to be tough tomorrow because you're throwing your Sunday starter. And then you're thinking, man, what do we do with the math when we get to Penn State and Purdue in the last 2 weekends? Because all of a sudden you went from being on top of the Big Ten to really struggling to win games, and especially those Friday night games. I'm starting to get a little concerned about Nebraska baseball.
No, the margin for error is really thin with where the team sits. I mean, before last night, you're 2.5 out, and that's both ways. You're 2.5 out from climbing the mountaintop, and then you're 2.5 from watching Omaha this May with the Big Ten tournament. So I think there's a lot of pressure on these guys. I think they've been frustrated. I don't know that they've been able to check that at the clubhouse. And Will talked about it midweek against North Dakota State. Just at this point in the season, still talking about selfishness.
Yeah,
that's not how he is wired. That's not how he coaches. That's not how he played. And you still got to win games, but you can't sit guys that you need in the lineup.
Yeah, I think
they've not done what they needed to do, not just from a win-loss standpoint, but just from an approach all the time.
Yeah. So I know, Elijah, you paid a lot of attention. You know some of these guys, they almost miss like a Jackson Hallmark. Guys that were GATA guys that maybe weren't your best player, but they were guys that were going to let people have a letdown on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and we're going to stay dialed in. And they're missing that guy. They're missing that guy in the clubhouse. And there's a disconnect because you're absolutely right, Schmitty and Elijah, is you can't be saying some of the things that Will says about their performance when it's May 4th, 5th, 6th. You know, those are things that if you're saying after a game in late February or early March, we're like, you know what, guys are still trying to figure out their roles. But I truly believe that this team has too much talent to have these inconsistent performances like that. Now, Maryland is really, really good. So it's not just focusing on last night. It's focusing over the scope of about 10 games when you include the midweek mess. But I wonder where they're going to get that spark from that basically says, guys, our season is starting to slip a little bit because after last night, I mean, there are, 4 teams that are tied for 5th, and they're all 3 games out. So you are essentially a game from being out of the top 8, and you're only 3 out from being at the top. It's such a weird season with this team, and I don't know where it's going to go over the next couple of weeks.
Gary Sharp with us. Sharpie, we'll let you get on with your Saturday. Always love you for making time, bud. Appreciate you coming on this morning, and have a weekend. Go pick a winner.
Have some big juleps.
Yeah, I think they're overrated. I'll stick to bourbon.
Okay.
We'll get in there later at the Derby party. We'll do both.
Wow. Hey, Elijah, did you get an invite to Schmitty's Derby party?
I did not.
It's Iowa Russ's Derby party, not mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Elijah, you don't want to go to that.
Well, see, I have friends that are at the Derby.
Sundays will be very bad for you.
I have friends that are at the Derby. They said they're planning on going back next year, and I'm talking with Schmitty about doing a road show from the Kentucky Derby next year. We got our friend from down the hall, J-Dub. He lives in Louisville, which is like 30 minutes from Churchill Downs, maybe a little bit less. Go crash at his place, do a show from the infield of the Derby, GA tickets, only $40.
Is there working power on the infield?
There's got to be. I mean, they have huge screens everywhere, and they have.
It's like been on the infield twice.
From everybody that's been there. Our good friend Mike Schaefer was there recently, and it's quite the scene. You got to hope you get good weather because you dress up, you wear the hats, you hope that it's not raining. But you know what? I could see you guys next year doing a show. They actually are super media friendly. When Creighton basketball was down there, they let our station do some shows from the clubhouse. So they're media friendly. Now might be a little bit different with the Derby, but yeah, let's look into this. Because there's and Elijah, you brought up you have friends that are there. Schmidt, you've had friends that have been there. There's a lot of people in the Omaha Lincoln area that go to the Derby every year. So I think next year we're having this conversation. We are in Kentucky.
We've got to rope in our old buddy JB, John Baylor.
Yeah,
he's been.
Yeah, I know, and he fits right in. He would give us our fashion sense.
No, but I'm saying Baylor could get us in a box.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
JB, we've missed you. Come on with. Well, all right. To-do list. We'll get it going.
Hey, I appreciate it as always. Well, have a great weekend, guys.
You guys, appreciate you.
Thank you, Gary.
That'll do it for the weekend edition. Big thanks to Gary Sharp, Brandon Vogel, Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, and Chris Schmidt signing off. We'll talk to you Monday at 4 on Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.